Hiya guys, and welcome back to Perfect Designs Crochet. I will be continuing on with my blanket for this video and we shall be finishing it. To what degree of finish, I'm not sure yet. I'm very quickly running out of time, but let's get on to this video. So to start off with, I will need to weave in all of the ends from the squares in this pile. I believe there's about 17. This pile has all of their ends weaved in. I still need to add the white border around all of these squares like the ones I'm showing you now. But these squares are all finished except for the ones that are blocking. They just need a block, but they are all done crochet wise. The reason I'm doing this is because, as I am showing you here, the size difference is immense. And when it comes to making a blanket, having different size squares isn't going to work for this pattern. But let's get on into it. So starting off with, I will be weaving in my ends of, I think it was about 17 squares I had left to weave in. Now guys, I do not enjoy weaving in ends, hence why I left them all to the end. I am very, very grateful that past me went through and was like, oh, I have nothing else to do. I'm going to A, weave in a bunch of ends, and B, do a bunch of the borders on the squares before I need them. That saved me a lot of time for this video. I was about halfway through all the squares when I started, so thank you past me, you really were a lifesaver. When I weave in my ends, I tend to tie them in a knot if I'm able to, and then weave them back and forth 3 or 4 times and then snip them off. I like to tie them in a knot just so that's an extra layer of security, and hopefully that knot won't come undone. Hopefully they won't become unraveled at all, but hopefully that knot won't come undone as a last resort, so to speak. I had a little bit more footage of me weaving in ends, but I figured you guys don't want to see that. It's the same thing over and over and over, weaving the needle back and forth and back and forth. So we've moved on to the next step in this process, which was adding the white borders to the squares. Now each square needs a different border. It wasn't a one case fits all. For example, this square here, I had to do a row of double crochets, a row of half double crochets to reach the same size, and then every square I did got a single crochet border around the edge so that they all had a nice finishing edge. Some of my larger squares just got the single crochet border, which you'll see at the end of, like after this square, it'll be the next square. But that's how I did it. I sort of laid it on the blocking board, saw what size it needed to be, guesstimated how many rows. I got pretty good at it by the end. I was able to tell, alright, this one can be done with like 2 half double rows, or this one will just need a double crochet, but that came with time. I had to do 50 of these squares, so I got pretty good at guessing, this will need this and that'll need that by the end. Not to toot my own horn, but if you were to do it, you would also pick up the vibe of, this is the same size as this, and this needed that. it's slightly off camera, here you can see me putting it on the blocking board. This was just so they'd slightly stretch and settle to be the same size. So that is what I did with every single square. Each square got a little bit of time on the blocking board before I moved on to the next square. So just rinse, wash, repeat that pattern until I was done. The next few clips were quite fun to record. I ended up laying out all of the squares in their numerical order, so 1 through 50. So I started up the top left and then worked towards the camera. And then I had the fun job of sorting the squares onto their respective card, I guess you'd say. This was quite fun, and in hindsight I should have kept them in the order I made them so that this job was easier, but I didn't. I just threw them around willy-nilly and worked on some from this week and some from that week until I had them all done. I guess the perk of doing it this way was I got to play like a little puzzle game working out which square went where. Some of them were really easy because the design was clearly what it was, but there were lots of flowers with bobbles, which when you shift the colour palettes around became quite difficult to work out what was what and who went where, so I ended up throwing them all to the side and working through them at the end. I don't think I got footage of that, but that's what I did. Not much to say other than once these were all laid out, I finally got a feel for the blanket because I'd only ever seen them as individual squares. I'm like, oh, the colour palette on this one isn't great, or I'm not sure if these colours go together. But at the end, like now what you can see, it looks stunning. I'm really happy with the colours. I'm happy with the way they all came out. I'm at this point getting really excited for this blanket. I'm not sure if I mentioned it before, I don't like weaving in ends. I don't like sewing. And what do I have to do now? I have to join 50 squares together, and I chose to sew them together. What was I thinking? I can tell you what I was thinking. The stitches won't match up from square to square because they're all different patterns, different designs, and not designed to have the same stitch count. So instead of crocheting it and having to do 2 together or skip or that sort of thing, I decided to sew it together. Do I regret my choices? Slightly. Do I think I would have preferred to have crocheted them? Not really. So I am happy with the choice I made, even if it did take a while. I think the first square I sewed together took me about 5 minutes. And then by the end, I was down to 3 to 4 minutes per square. So I definitely got quicker, and I just stuck on some YouTube and enjoyed the process. After I had all of my squares sewn together, I wanted to add a couple of rows of half double crochet on the top and the bottom of the square. I wanted to add a row of half double crochet to the top and the bottom of the square because I didn't want my blanket to be what I would consider perfect rectangle. So I had 50 squares. So I made it 10 wide by 5 high, which would make it exactly half the other way. I didn't want that. So to counter that, I added 3 rows of half double crochet per side. And in the middle of the 3, I added one of the colours I used in the squares. So I just went through them all to add a little accent, a little pop of colour, and to break up the white. I am quite happy with the way this came out. It took a long while to do, but I am happy with the final outcome. The next step in this never-ending process was to sew all of the 10 square wide strips together. So here I am laying out the first 3. I started there and I sewed them together. Now that this is over, I can happily say that it is done. I didn't love the process of sewing these together. It was fairly straightforward. I went through one side, then the other side, then one side, then the other side, much like you would with sewing. But I don't enjoy sewing, so the process of creating this wasn't the most enjoyable. But as I said before with the squares, as everything is a different stitch count, it was the only way in my head that I could make it make sense to join all of these squares together. I didn't end up getting much recording of me sewing this blanket together because it is the same thing over and over, and I figured it would be quite boring for you guys. But after I finished sewing all of these strips together, I went ahead and worked on the border. That was just a row of half doubles or singles depending on how the squares were sitting and if I needed to even them up, and then it was a row of half doubles to finish off the blanket. I then had to weave in some more ends and then I was done. So here is the final look at the project. Now that we've done that fancy roll through the blanket, I will give you some final thoughts on the overall blanket as a whole. I am happy with how it came out. I am certainly happy that it is done. My thoughts and feelings, I like the way the colours came together on this. I think when I was working on them as just squares, it was very sort of, oh, I'm not sure if I'm gonna like this. This square doesn't look good. These colours don't match. But then once you got it into the blanket, they all worked very well together, and I am happy with it. Hello, Tori, hang on, let me move her for a second. There we go, we are Tori free once more, but I'm doubtful it will stay that way. She is hovering like a piranha, speaking of. So I am happy with the colours of this and the way they all came together in the end. My only one complaint with this is the way the squares are a bit ripply. This was due to different stitch amounts. I think it will need a very good block at the end, but I don't mind doing that. I just did not have time to do it before the video had to be released. A quick thing I should mention is that all of these squares are sewn in their numerical order, so 1 through 10 in the first row, then 11 through 20 in the second row, so I didn't do it randomly. It was according to what the squares said. But thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye guys!